Waking up feeling paralyzed. You've got demons on top of you. You can't move. The demon has his hands around your neck and you don't know what to do. This video is going to give you the tips to stop sleep paralysis from happening again in your life. Stay tuned. Quick explanation on what sleep paralysis is. Sleep paralysis is when you wake up and you actually don't fully wake up. Your body stays in a state of paralysis and there are entities that come around you and start to feel like they're attacking you, and they can choke you, they can just scream in your face, but you're not able to do anything about it because you're paralyzed. I'm going to show you really what that looks like. Hey guys, what's up? It's Megan. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today's video is going to be talking about how to stop sleep paralysis in your life for good. Sleep paralysis is something that affects millions of people, and I've personally never had sleep paralysis because I do the things that I'm going to tell you guys. Sleep paralysis and nightmares are not exactly the same thing. However, the German word for nightmare is called Nachtmar, which basically means that there is a or entity on top of you. And in German folklore, there was a lot of speaking about demonic entities that would come on top of people in their sleep and would not leave people alone when they were sleeping, and basically it wreaked havoc on these people's lives, and that's where the word nightmare originates from. So when you're having a nightmare, there are actually entities that exist in the etheric realm, aka the astral realm. Now, the astral realm is not the same thing as the physical realm. What you guys see right now is the physical realm. That's everything that you see. You need to open up a different sensory pathway to see the astral or etheric realm. Because our brains are wired to only see the physical, we deny there ever being anything that exists in the spiritual. But just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. For example, we can't see ultraviolet waves. That doesn't mean that ultraviolet light waves don't exist. It just means that we can't see them. When you're trying to remove an entity from your sleep, you have control and you have sovereignty over that entity. Basically what this means is that if you have the power of a god, you have the power to remove any astral entity from your life. If they have connections to source or the godhead of all things, you can understand that you are a god and you have the authority and the power to make any entity flee in your sleep. If you're having sleep paralysis, it means that you have entity attachments. You're more likely to get entity attachments if you do the following: if you drink, if you do drugs, if you watch excessive pornography, if you watch excessive horror movies. I'll talk about this more in a minute, but I just want to say that horror movies mostly come from Hollywood, and the name Hollywood actually comes from the branch that witches use when they're trying to cast spells. So Hollywood is basically spell casting, and a lot of the time etheric entities flock to low vibrational movies like horror movies and actually attach themselves to people who are excessive fans of horror movies. This can lead these people into long bouts of depression, feeling suicidal, getting sleep paralysis, etc., because they're watching these movies and they're basically submitting that it's okay for these entities to possess them just by the consensual nature of watching the movie. And this is known in people who do energy work because they can easily see when an entity has climbed over and attached themselves to someone who has maybe holes in their auric field from just stress and negativity can create holes in your auric field, and the entity basically will attach themselves to the hole in your auric field. This is called an etheric cord tie. You can look this up. It's all verifiable. And so just be aware that when you're watching horror movies in excess, that there's really actual negative entities that flock to these in the astral realm. And it's better to protect your energy and just not engage in that activity at all if you're trying to become a higher vibrational person. These things will create entity attachments. Let me explain how. So when people use drugs, their pupils expand. What this is actually representing is that your spirit is expanding. And when your spirit expands, your auric field expands. Well, if you... God fucking damn. have a thin auric field to begin with, or a low vibrational auric field to begin with, and you try to stretch it, like stretching an elastic band is going to break. And when it breaks, there's actually holes that come into your auric field, and they're in your aura. And now your aura has holes. This is a bad thing. And what the entities do is they actually find a way inside of your auric field through these holes. And this is called entity attachment, and this is basically where possession comes from, is because entities will seek out auric fields that have holes in them, and they'll possess that person, and they'll reap the energy of that person's auric field. And in many different tribal folklores and things, it talks about how the entities have latched onto that person, and that's basically truth. Entities come in many different shapes, many different forms. There are jinn entities, there are demonic entities, there are succubus, there are incubus entities, there are so many different types of entities. There are different names for the same entity based on different cultures and different religions. Now, this doesn't mean that the entities are just fake folklore. As we're learning in this world, not everything is as it meets the eye. So understand that just because you don't have a physical body doesn't mean that you don't exist. Because when we die, our physical body dies, but we don't die. We still live on because of the spirit, which cannot be destroyed. Alright, so a bit of a tangent there, but what happens is these entities latch onto you, and many entities are in pornography because it is filled with people who use drugs. It's filled with low vibrational activities such as child sex trafficking, and all these entities do is they want to find hosts. And if you're watching these movies, you are basically consenting to being a host for the entity in the movie. And I've verified this with so many people who have come to me after watching horror movies. They say, I'm watching a horror movie every single week, Megan, and now I'm getting sleep paralysis. And I'm like, dude, okay, it's from the horror movie. You are not a low vibrational person who is going out and trying to summon these entities, but you are summoning them, not understanding that you are, by watching these horror movies. Once you understand the ins and outs of your neurons and how they actually work, you'll understand that when you watch a horror movie, your brain cannot differentiate between it being on the screen and actually happening to you. Yes, that's right. You would actually have the same emotions in the same brain, the same areas in your brain light up when you're watching someone being killed on a TV as if you were that person being killed. It's called neuron mirroring, and it means that your neurons mirror what you're seeing. It's happening to it is that it's real as if it was really happening to it. Anything that it watches on TV, anything that you see happening, you can't distinguish if it's a story, if it's fake, other than it being just on the TV. You actually feel it as if it was real. And that creates all those different neurons firing in your brain and creating the same emotional and neurochemical responses as if you were being tortured, murdered, or ran after in a scary horror movie. So that's low vibrational in itself. And I can also verify this with a study that was done in 2014. They had people who were playing piano, and then they had other people who were just imagining playing piano. And the people who were imagining themselves playing piano, the same brain imaging scans came up for the people who were imagining playing the piano as the people who were actually playing the piano. So there's no differentiation. That's all fake, and we have to rise above that state of consciousness where we think anything that we watch is going to not affect us. We're affected by TV, we're affected by the media, we're affected by the drugs we put in our body. And that leads you into a more lower vibrational state. You can't differentiate from fantasy and reality as well as you want to believe. You really can't. So you have to be aware of this, and you have to be not putting yourself in these situations where you're inviting demonic entities. So the next time you have a sleep paralysis, demand that the entity leaves. Just say out loud, I demand that you leave, and you don't have to really do anything special. Demand that the entity leaves completely and leaves you alone. And your authority reigns over the authority of another being, because we have conscious, spiritual, and sovereign free will on this planet. And what the entities do is they bank on your ignorance, basically, and they bank on the fact that you're not even going to realize that they're there, and you're going to be too scared. And the reason they make you scared, the reason they choke you, the reason they throw you across the room, or I've heard all the crazy stories about this, and the reason they make you feel so scared is because that fear is called Luche, L-O-O-S-H, which is a thing that demonic entities and lower vibrational entities actually eat, and it actually sustains them, and it actually gives them life energy. So if the more Luche that a person has, the more attracted to you that entities are going to be, because they're like, it's a free meal. And when you give them that fear and that anxiety, you're giving them exactly what they want. So happiness, laughter can get you out of any nightmare, can get you out of any type of sleep paralysis. Just being in that state of unconditional love can get you out of any sleep paralysis at all, because those entities are not going to want that from you. They don't want you to be high vibrational, because they can't do anything with that. They can't eat that. They don't care. So staying in a high vibration will completely remove sleep paralysis from your life. And when you have the entity over you, demand that it leave. Say, I want you to leave. Now, I demand that you leave. Say it like you mean it. Don't say it like, oh, like maybe you should leave. Like, I don't really know, but I'm afraid, I'm scared. No, get into that state of unfear, that state of actual unconditional love, and demand that entity leaves you alone. You might have to do this several times. You might have to really repeat yourself. You might have to really get the gall. But once you do, you will be able to get that entity and remove that entity from your life. And that entity will not bother you. It will not come after you again, because you are starting to get that sovereign power over your life. So to recap, sleep paralysis is nothing to be afraid of. You can demand that the entity leaves. A lot of this information has been so lost on this planet that people just don't want to believe that things like entity possession are real. So they don't want to believe that this is even happening to them, and they think it's all a mirage or a fake fantasy that they're having when they sleep. But people who have really had sleep paralysis, you guys know that this is real, and it feels real because it is real. It's just coming from the astral realm, and it's coming from the etheric realm, where we cannot see it unless we open up different faculties in our senses. So I hope that this video helped you guys. I hope this video gave you the keys to unlock the doors to overcome your sleep paralysis. My name is Megan, and I run my channel called Megan X Rose, and I'd really appreciate if you guys could subscribe. We are almost at 36,000 subscribers, and I'm super happy about that. And I want to thank all of you for being on this collective spiritual journey with me and staying tuned for all my videos. I appreciate it so much, and I love you guys. If you want to contact me, I have an Instagram. It's at Megan X Rose, or you can shoot me an email. I also do coaching, which is in the bio down below. And that's pretty much it though. So I will see you all so soon, and we'll have another video discussing other spiritual things. And bye. There's like rocks here. Well, if you